Good morning, everyone. How are you? How are you? I am so happy to welcome you to the Road to Innovation in Miami. What a great place to start. We were laughing that Route 66 didn't really start in Miami, but the new Route 66 for education innovation is starting in Miami. And it's starting here for a number of reasons. First and foremost, Florida is one of the states that helped pave the way for changes from K through career learners at all levels. Breakthrough changes, K through 12, higher ed, technology, and some people don't realize how many ed tech incubators are actually right here in Florida. It's also the gateway to Latin America, and we can't do anything anymore unless we're really focused on one America, and I think you all could help me agree with that. So when we started thinking about this idea of how to celebrate 25 years, we looked around the landscape and we thought, this is the way that we created a movement, all of us. Movements in how people learn, movements in how teachers teach, movements in how schools are structured, movements globally, brain research, the whole concept of how we take our kids, grow them into adults, help them become productive people focused on their lives being able to achieve the American dream. And how did we do that with Route 66? Where's the parallel? Well, it's hard to believe that just barely 50, 60 years ago, we didn't even have a highway, a major highway across the country. There were disconnected communities. I mean, imagine having all these different places across the country that you had to go, these individual routes, get off, take another back road, and take another back route, and couldn't even get there. There was no technology. And so today, we have united and connected people in dramatically different ways, both with a national highway system and more global connectivity. But yet, we are so disconnected to this day. We might as well all be sitting in these amazing diner booths having conversations that nobody else is privy to. Because while all of us are here for important reasons, all of you leaders with helping kids learn at all levels, there's an entire world out there that has no idea what we do every day. And so this event, this summit, this gala tonight, that I hope you'll all stay and join us for, honoring people who are truly beacons and highlights of those innovations and connecting people, not just in their own communities, but then to states and other nations. This entire movement, a new movement, must begin to connect us all across sectors. This is the beginning of us unsiloing together all of these traditional lines and confines that have held us back, that have held our kids back. Where Route 66 was once the first national road, the Mother Road, we would like to get started on the new Mother Road of education innovation. I will be back to talk with you a little bit more about how we'd like to help you all do that. But first, let's get the party started and get the panel up here. And while the panel's coming up here, our first panel, I have a couple of housekeeping announcements. So first, I'm so sorry the app is not working for all of you. We are trying to get that done, but it's really, really simple. You're here all day, you're having lunch next door, you come back here, okay? You come back here, and then you have a great dinner with awards and everything. We have the governor of Puerto Rico coming today. We have a fantastic lunch panel. You are here. If any of our team, our amazing team, can help you, please let them know. But otherwise, please participate, because the other thing is you can't connect with each other and make success if you're always out of the room. So you got to be in the room to be on the road to innovation. Thank you.
Wow. Is the microphone working? Excellent. So it does feel a little bit like we're on the set of a sitcom. Happy Days definitely came to mind, or maybe a little Grease Lightning if you want to try to do a little coordinated act up here. But in all seriousness, today's panel, we're focused on the new global university is disruptive, innovative, and pick your favorite ending to that statement. I'm Sasha Littman. I lead McKinsey & Company's analytics group for our education, public, and social sector group. And would love to get an introduction from the rest of the panel, and then we'll get started.
Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Julia Rosen from Arizona State University. I currently lead our global training capacity building unit called Global Launch, but perhaps more interesting, I've been at ASU 9 months before President Michael Crow came, and have served in a wide variety of positions in entrepreneurship, tech transfer. I'm the ASU founder of the ASU GSV Summit, and I've also worked at ASU Online, so it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sasha.
Perfect.
My name is Anand Agarwal. I am the CEO of edX and also a professor at MIT. edX is a nonprofit learning destination where we partner with some of the greatest universities and institutions of the world, like ASU and MIT and Harvard and Oxford and others. And they offer courses and programs on edX, and we have 18 million students all over the world that are taking these courses. And we're working with universities to really disrupt and reimagine higher ed.
Terrific. James?
Hey, good morning. I'm James Willey. I'm Senior Vice President of Product at Ellucian Software. I guess what I do is I get to build solutions that help students get access to their education and, more importantly, help turn some of the data into knowledge for them to be more successful.
Great.
Hi, I'm David Weiss. I'm the Executive Director of Modern States Education Alliance, and I happen to be partnered with Anand at edX. We happen to be partnered with Arizona State University. So you and I, we've got to probably have a few differences up here because we're not partnered yet.
We can work on it, though.
Modern States is a way for students to earn their freshman year totally for free, and it's an on-ramp to college. Think of it as a digital public library of great courses, all free, that enables students online to make it through college at 25% less than the cost of tuition.
Terrific. So returning to the core question that Jeannie had asked us to tackle, which is the new global university is disruptive, innovative, and ellipsis. Close the gap here. I wanted to ask if each of the panelists could share his or her core thesis on what really the new global university will look like. We'll just take a couple of minutes for that. Then the plan is to launch into some hopeful points of disagreement among folks on the panel about what the new global university will look like. Then we'd love to take some audience questions, and then we'll finish up with some closing thoughts from the panel. So the new global university is. Anant, you want to get us started?
Sure, happy to do that. The new global university is nothing like it is today. And you just have to think of virtually any field known to humankind, except for academics and the government, and see how digital has transformed those fields. I mean, just pick a field. For example, pick transportation. The future of transportation is one where people may not own cars. There may not even be cars. There might be pods. Look at Lyft and Uber that are completely transforming how people transport themselves. It's web-based digital, and gives people incredible power and control over their lives. The same thing is happening to education. I'll give you one or two quick little examples. In universities, we're completely used to admissions. Oh, isn't that strange? How many of you believe that education is a human right? If you don't, then maybe... So given that, if something is a human right, why do we have admissions? Even for coffee, I can go and grab a cup of coffee. We don't have Jeannie standing there saying, all right, what are your SAT scores before you can get a cup of coffee? So the question is, why do we have admissions? And with technology, what we can do is we can have open admissions. Everybody gets access. And just as that example, edX has launched a new program called MicroMasters. Now, these are modular programs, about 25% of a master's degree. So today, if you can't complete a full degree, half a degree, you're called a failure. Why? If you get a piece of it, like a piece of pie? No, you have to eat the whole pie, sorry. You want a piece of pie? So we give you a MicroMasters. And once you make education modular that way, you can now combine things. So as an example, we partnered with Arizona State University and MIT, and we've launched the world's first unbundled online master's degree. And so here, MIT offers 40% of the master's degree as a MicroMasters, and ASU offers 6 additional courses, all on edX online. And you can start the MIT MicroMasters. Did I say open admissions? Open? And in all of these things, you're able to do a lot of the learning for free. You want the credential and the exams and so on, you pay. So it's completely rethinking and changing the way education will happen. It will become unbundled. People will offer pieces. They'll work together. They'll network. Learners will have choice. You'll take a piece from here, a piece from there, a piece from there, and synthesize degrees that will come from some other place altogether.
Great. Thank you, Anand. We're going to definitely probe further into each of these. Julia, what is your take on the question?
Sure. The Global University's disruptive innovation, and I would say born out of the local context with which it operates, in which it operates. So, for example, at Arizona State University, we are the only public university that serves more than 4 million people in Greater Phoenix. So that's the size of Singapore, Ireland, with one university. We represent, or the Greater Phoenix area represents 80% of the state's economic activity. So while we're advancing on all the traditional academic criteria, we're also serving as many qualified students as we can. So right now we're 72,000 on ground, plus another 30,000 fully online through ASU Online. And so this mission of economic development and social impact is born out of our circumstance. And of course there's Sacred Heart University, whose president is probably here somewhere, in Puerto Rico, who has very differentiated vision to serve Puerto Rico. Tec de Monterrey, who's got 3 levels of systems. Each one is differentiated, all responsive to the Mexican context. So I would say while we're global, there's also this very intense local component that helps shape the future of whatever university or higher education institution we'll see.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
I would say, when I heard the word disconnected this morning, I think, the campus today is a highly federated world where data about who I am as a student is fractured. And then your point, I like to say there's a campus with no walls. I think that's where we're going, where this notion of choice and access to education is absolutely critical. But I think what's going to be really, really important is the notion of who the student is, and the student will become empowered to have the choice and the decisions themselves. Usually the systems drive the access, but I'm just listening to all of you, and you're all connected, you're all partners, but when you're really partnered to give access to that student, to give them the outcome that they need. And I think that will be it. And for what I do, it's really about, can I help build technologies that enable it? Can I build this notion of a global ID for a student that they can carry with them, that they are empowered to have, not that each individual place has their own. I think that will be the change, and I think that's where technology can help sort of start to blur the lines between all of these campuses and these roads between them.
Thank you. David?
Well, I think that all of the discussion and talk about traditional universities going away is exaggerated and overstated, at least in the foreseeable future. And so what we've done, I'm the executive director of Modern States, and we've created an on-ramp to college. The biggest problem with college today is not admissions. The biggest problem with college today is tuition. Tuition is absolutely out of sight. If anybody out here has tried to pay college tuition recently, I think you'll probably agree with me that it's something of a problem. And tuition has risen at a great rate, faster than inflation, faster than healthcare costs even. And so what we've done is we've created a way for students to earn their freshman year for free. How do they earn their freshman year for free? They come to modernstates.org, and I encourage you to go to modernstates.org and check out this program, because we have 32 great courses, more than 40 great courses. We have AP courses that we created in connection with Anant and edX, a great partner. And then we have courses built around a test called CLEP that you've probably never heard of, College Level Examination Program. It's also offered by the College Board, leads to college credit at 2,900 colleges and universities. And we have 32 great courses taught by college professors that prepare students for free in every possible way, including the payment of the test fee to the College Board, so that we can help bring down the price of admission and the barrier of tuition for students. And we've been up about a year, and proof of concept is there, and we've got about 100,000, almost 100,000 signed up for Modern States so far, and we're just beginning.
Wonderful. Okay, so we had a chance to connect a little bit in advance and had probed a few different areas that we wanted to explore a little bit here for you. I'm going to bundle my core thesis into the first question, so please forgive us. I give a little framing on that. I think that we've probably all been reading the press about Harvard admissions policies being now in the public eye. I don't know how shocking any of the actual factors are. I think many of us probably assumed all of these. But with that in the public eye, I think the whole question of university admissions is an important question mark. Anand's thought, taken that maybe we shouldn't have admissions. Others believe that if we didn't have selectivity, then we wouldn't have the university as we have it, as we understand it today, with the loyalty and the alumni and the strong bond that individuals derive from it, and that whole economic model. Would love to kind of get your thoughts. How do you actually think that admissions is going to evolve? Will the process be completely transparent? Will it be access for all? Will it continue to be selective? How do we see that evolving?
Well, it needs to evolve. My son is going through the process right now. And I built software for higher ed, and it's hard. It is very hard. And what I mean is, from the student's perspective, expecting a young adult or an adult learner to understand and be able to do comparative understanding of different campuses, different programs, different paths, and then more importantly, how do those paths translate into career? And what kind of value chain do you see in your education? And what are you going to do? And then what kind of plan are you going to make for yourself to build? So I think ultimately this is going to be one of those areas I think that's going to need to be able to rise up the admission process above. And again, I think it's going to be key that the student becomes empowered to have access to understand and then compare, which it's pretty hard to actually compare these different places and programs and to see what's the best fit for you and who you are.
So I'd say I also have a son, 17 years old. So one comment on the current system is that the pressure for a 17-year-old to try to define and know what he's going to do for the rest of his life. He's just like, well, I want to see football. I don't know exactly what I want to do. And so that kind of answer that was when we were going to college completely fine it's very artificial. In terms of admissions, I think what I'd love to see, and we're doing this, many universities are doing this, but certainly at ASU it's important for us, for people to earn their way. So if you're an international student, rather than taking a test, do well on English courses. If you're a domestic student and you may or may not have transcripts and you want to be an engineering student, how about if you take some courses and do fantastic in calculus? So I think this notion of proving that you can do the work is far more robust and important than any sort of previous fake criteria.
Anant raised a question about admissions going away. At modern states, we have no admissions requirements. So we're already there now. Any student can come forward and go online to modern states and do their freshman year for free. It could be a high school student, could be an adult student, doesn't matter, but it's open to all people, and we have no barriers and no admission standards.
Well, I'd love to pick up on that, and I think this will get Anant to where you were starting us earlier. Ryan Craig, who published a book recently called A New You, has argued that there's going to be a continued bifurcation in the higher education market between the schools like Harvard that are highly selective, maybe the top 40 or 50 institutions in the country that are truly selective, and then when you really think about it, all the other universities actually are not selective, right? They have, as long as you meet basic criteria, you're going to get in. And so there's an argument to suggest that actually there'll be a bifurcation where there'll be no admissions limitations for many of the programs, and that the middle, many universities who are out there who really are not selective are going to really have to pick to go one way or the other. Do you believe that that bifurcation is a true pathway of what we're going to see unfold, or do you envision that it's going to unfold differently?
I think this whole question and the thesis is wrong. I think it again, illuminates our fundamental biases of how education works. Like you said, education is set up to create these infinite loyalty programs. If you want loyalty programs, go start an airline. And so, I think universities should focus on education. And so there, we're used to this thing about people come to university at the age of 17 or 18, and then you have these bifurcation points and admissions and SATs and GREs and TOEFLs. All of this is just absolute, utter crap. And I think what should really happen is that education will become lifelong. Any number of people will tell you that as digital technology completely transforms our society, we have to learn newer and newer things throughout life. I mean, data science, there are 3 million jobs available in data science alone. And data science wasn't a phrase that existed before 2008. It's a whole new field. So people have to be keeping on upskilling and reskilling, which means that we will move to a new education system in the future where you don't go and spend 4 or 5 years in a university at the age of 18 when you have no idea what you want to do, and then work for the rest of your life. That was the Ford philosophy. You learned one skill, and then you sat there for the rest of your life doing that skill. That was in Ford's time. But today, I think all of our society keeps changing, and so what will happen is people will learn for 6 months or 8 months, at the unbundled university, go to modern states and learn something, maybe gen ed, and then following that, they'll work for a year. It's, you know what, I love accounting, and go and do a micro program in accounting. And they'll keep working and learning throughout life, and somewhere along the way, they'll say, you know what, I have enough of these things to go get a degree. And then you may ask me, what's the point of the degree? Good point. What's the point of the degree? Frankly, I think degrees are antediluvian concepts.
Well,
We all look.
as the Dean of Admissions at Harvard, I decided to take the day off from the courtroom. I think that admission standards probably won't go away for the most selective and most competitive universities. And I think they can't go away for many of the largest universities because they don't have enough room on campus for all the students to fit into their dorms and all the rest. This takes us to the digital and online world, which is fantastic and terrific for students who can handle the lack of structure and for students who can handle the need to be self-starters. But not every student can do that, and so I think having a great online program like edX does, like ASU has, like Modern States has, can be a way for those students who are really self-motivated, for those students who take initiative, for those students who can survive and thrive really and get ahead. And they are the future. They're not the future of education. It's happening right now. edX has tens of millions of users around the world. Modern States, we're just a year old. We've got 100,000. But the key thing there is, I think that students will be making the choice. The choice won't all be made by adults about which path to take.
So to play on that a little bit, when we think of universities today, and even those that are online, like edX, are leveraging the traditional research faculty with the high, ivy-covered walls of the campuses.
Yes.
What happens to these campuses and to these research faculty that we are so familiar with this continued proliferation of online?
I don't see those as disparate notions at all. So our research faculty and research faculty throughout all of the institutions that have robust technology enabled learning processes, they're at the core of this. It's simply a different modality is the way I would look at that. And as far as the traditional campus, again, back to our, or at least my less than mature 17-year-old, the traditional campus serves a much broader function than getting a degree or learning any module, which is about the personal development and maturation of young men and women. And so I would, again, argue that that's not really they're not disparate concepts.
No, I think that's another example of where we've been doing a set of things just because we've been doing a set of things, right? Yeah. Top research faculty, at MIT, for example, but teaching is considered is a great thing. I've been there for 31 years. But I have colleagues who would say, why are you making me teach? I don't like to teach. Mm-hmm. And this faculty and this faculty member says, he's told me that. He says, put me in a room, slide pizza under the door, and let me think big thoughts. Why make me teach? But that is fine. Let faculty specialize. We have great teachers, we have great researchers, we have great thinkers, and we have great do-nothingers. So let them all, let them all do what they're good at, and leave them alone. And I think this is one example where Yossi Sheffi, who leads the Supply Chain MicroMasters program from MIT on edX, and he says the only way that they've been able to scale that program, about 400,000 students have taken that MicroMasters. The only way they've been able to do that is that actually none of the people teaching it are MIT faculty members. And so he said, so they've had great teachers who connect in great ways to the students, and there's a cadre of people that are very dedicated to teaching that do not want to dilute their time with this thing called research. It's not that research is a bad idea. It's a good idea for some people, but not for all people.
Think about Amazon, and then think about education. Amazon hasn't eliminated the need or the desire that people have to shop for all kinds of things. They've changed the delivery mechanism dramatically, and they've done it by taking massive advantage of a logistics system that's brilliant, and by using the internet in ways that no one ever imagined. In the same notion, courses are going to be delivered differently, just like Amazon delivers consumer goods and other things differently. I think what we'll see, though, is that some retail stores will survive and thrive. We look out at the world today, many have been disrupted, but there's still plenty of bricks and mortar retail stores out there. In fact, Amazon's now opening bricks and mortar retail stores. So I think what we're going to see is a blend of online and traditional college and university.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because we are seeing in other industries the expectation that bricks and mortar were dead, actually not to be a true supposition, and the complement to really be necessary. I mean, James, in many ways, you sit at the intersection of that from the technology side. How do you see that playing out between your university customers and yet the potential for online?
Well, it's really coming down to this notion of connectivity and creating systems. So you mentioned Amazon. I think when people look at Amazon, we do see this ease of use, this wonderful click experience. Everything's great. And if you think about you as a consumer or the student, it is very easy. But under the covers, it is a complex, highly data fractured world, and they've connected all the dots, and they've sort of hidden it away. So I think what's happening now is this notion of partnerships, and now the technology is starting to come in and say, how do we look at these programs? How do we look at partnerships? How do we look at faculty and staff crossing? Something as simple as IDs and access to file sharing across campuses. We wouldn't even thought about 2 years ago. We would have said it was data privacy. All of those barriers are starting to be forced to be broken down from a technical aspect. And I think the last thing is the technology is also looking at every single campus or online has their own technology footprint, and there's now standardization starting to come into play, where when we talk about a course and in the learning management space, there are some standards, but it doesn't cover the entire campus. So getting this rationalized so that under the covers we can talk, but to the student it's that simple experience.
Yeah. So when we were talking yesterday, one of the things that we were exploring is the whole question of leadership and culture. In order to, how do you convert university faculty that traditionally may have wanted to be locked in a room with the pizza delivered to their door like solitary confinement, and not having to do teaching and not having to deal with these new online modalities? We've seen ASU, edX, these different partnerships evolve. What did it take in terms of the change of the internal culture, and what kind of leadership actions did you see taken that enabled that unlocking of that disruption and innovation from the very faculty members that were in the Ivy Tower, locked up in their own Ivy Tower previously?
Well, there are university faculty who do enjoy teaching and who feel very threatened by the direction that things are going, and who very much worry about their own job security. I mean, after all, someone could say, why do we need tens of thousands of people teaching freshman English? Why do we need tens of thousands of people teaching mathematics at the core 101 level? That's why at Modern States we've created great courses in each of these subjects, because actually for those who have access to the internet, we don't need tens of thousands of people teaching it. You need one great professor delivering the course in an easy to use way to any device connected to the internet.
See, I think, David, it's actually risky to really focus on that vision, which is that you just need one faculty member teaching English. I think that that view is actually what scares faculty members, and we need to be very cautious about that.
Right.
And the way things have worked out pretty well is this is like any new product. For any new product to be launched, when Apple launched their iPod, you had the early adopters. You had the risk takers, the early adopters, the crazies, who went and got this strange device. Can you imagine talking on something that didn't have a wire attached to a wall? That is strange. They can walk wherever you want, but it's strange. It was a new thing. You had the early adopters, and then the early adopters said great things about it. They didn't get their heads cut off. And then you had the next group of people, the followers, or the next group that said, oh, we like it. And then the third group, and soon everybody was doing it. I think that's what's happening with faculty, with online learning as well. On edX, we had the first 1 or 2 or 3 faculty members, and in every university, you know exactly who they are, who are going to jump in and do the stuff. And they'll take all kinds of risks and work like maniacs with tools that are broken and buggy, and they'll plow through. They're the frontiers people. They will go through anything, and then they have good experiences. And then the colleagues see that, they're still surviving, they're still standing. They talk about their experiences. More people come into it, and I think that's what we have to do. And I believe that, to the point of you need just one English professor. No, I think what will happen is the kind of role that professors play will change. There might be one professor that writes the textbook or that gives the videos and stuff, but all the other professors and teachers are needed to play sort of the maybe not the sage on the stage, but the guide by the side role in mentoring and helping students. So roles will differentiate and everybody will have a role. It's not that we will need just one professor.
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm talking about at the introductory level only. I'm asking and I'm challenging the question of whether we need thousands and thousands of people teaching freshman subjects. I'm not talking about as we get up in higher levels of expertise.
I think what will happen...
Go right ahead.
To address your point, I'll challenge you on that. I think
Good.
We will need thousands. and this will be surprising coming from me, as a digital nut. I do believe we will need thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands in the following way. If you go back to the 1,000, 2,000 years ago, only the rich people could afford an education, and a great sage would come and tutor 2 or 3 students. I think we're going to end up in a model more similar to that because of digital technology, surprisingly. What will happen is some great teacher will record some videos. Some other person will create some great problem sets. And you'll crowdsource amazing problems from a lot of people. And then universities will borrow content from other places. And the faculty at universities may not have to teach 400-person lectures, but what they will do is maybe run tutorial sections using someone else's content. And we will need a lot of people that are guiding students, mentoring them, helping them think about life, do projects, hands-on learning. So I think the roles people will play, very much like Ford's assembly line, will change. Not everybody will be out there, tightening the lug nuts. Different people will be building engines, designing and painting. So I think the roles will change, and we will simply need more people, just that they all won't be doing the same thing.
Julia, you've actually experienced this transformation during your time at ASU. Can you tell us a little bit about how the culture shifted?
Sure, because I think it's great to be talking. Obviously, the centrality of the faculty role is amazing, but I think what is perhaps more dramatic in ASU's transformation from a good school to an excellent school over 16 years, and just amazing trajectories and research and all sorts of traditional academic criteria. But again, it's the context in which the faculty and the staff operate. So kind of one thing that has been so interesting, when President Crow first came to ASU, there was this whole new set of things that we were encouraged to talk about and things we were discouraged to talk about. So at the time, ASU was a very insular place, and we used to spend our 2 favorite topics of conversation were complaining about the University of Arizona, who felt and then the corollary, the state legislature, right? right, which disproportionately favored the state of Arizona. And so, in our view, I mean, disproportionately favored the University of Arizona. So President Crow came and said, like, I don't want to hear anything about U of A. I don't want to hear any complaining about the state legislature. So of course we're saying, well, what are we going to talk about, right? so he, again, well, let's look at what's happening in Dubai, and let's look about what's happening around the world, and let's think about global engagement in ways that we haven't. We're sitting next to Mexico. What were our previous relationships? Very, very thin. Again, back to, because U of A, quote unquote, owned Mexico. So we obviously got rid of that entire mentality. So it's this notion of how to think differently, and rhetoric. So other people might call anthropology anthro. We call it the School of Human Evolution and Social Change, and recombining schools and thinking about interdisciplinarity in a way that in 2002 was not common. I think now universities throughout the country and the world, everyone's working in an interdisciplinary way. But at that time, it was pretty uncommon. The focus of entrepreneurship. So another one of his phrases, and I'll stop talking here, is from moving not just students becoming entrepreneurs. And our vision of entrepreneurship at the earliest days is that, well, it's great that all the business students want to be entrepreneurs, but they actually don't know anything about like the markets, right? They just want to make money, right? We need the nurses and the artists and the musicians and the engineers and the physicists who have, kind of subject matter knowledge and can understand the problems in their sectors, and then together build an interdisciplinary entrepreneurial culture at the student level. But more importantly, he says that we have to change our mentality from being an agency to being an enterprise, and this is ASU writ large. And so that type of rhetoric really helped us think differently, and I think we've been able to accomplish things in a short period of time because we have been thinking differently based on his leadership.
Great. Last question up here on the panel, and then I'd love to go to the audience, so if some of you want to queue up or think of some questions. One of my areas of interest is analytics. You mentioned data science before. I trained in it when it was still called statistics and computer science before it had better branding. We've seen a lot in professional sports, the movie Moneyball.
Sabermetrics, right?
Sabermetrics,
Yes,
you've seen it spread to other sports. My view is when we look at higher education, you've got a lot of the same recipe. You essentially have many universities competing for a pool of students. Those universities are increasingly globalizing their search for the pool of students. The supply exceeds the demand. And you've got a lot of institutions that are financially not sustainable, which is a lot of the same recipes that you saw in the emergence of analytics in terms of the conditions for success in professional sports. How do you see analytics not only driving the decision-making in universities in the future and integrating with the culture of universities, but what do you think are going to be the key metrics that are ultimately we're going to use to judge universities on or higher education on in the future?
Can my students get a job? That's going to continue to be an increasingly important subject. People are graduating with tens of thousands of dollars or more of student debt. It can no longer be just, this is a great place to study arts and sciences. We want to do that to foster the mind for those people who can afford it. But for the vast majority of people, they're coming out of college and having a great social experience perhaps, and having a great educational experience if they're lucky, but they need to find a job. And that's absolutely critical. You can do a lot of crunching of numbers and other things, but at the end of the day, you can either go out and find a job or you can't, and that's going to determine a great deal about your destiny going forward.
Let me address your analytics question. Just like digital, analytics has transformed every field. Go Sox, right? Look at the Red Sox or the Dodgers. Why do you think that when Chris Sale
You're not
was
really
pitching-
rooting for the Dodgers. You're rooting for the Red Sox.
I know, I'm being gracious here. So when
Marlins, we're in Miami, right?
exactly. So when Chris Sale was pitching, his opening pitcher of the Red Sox, they had all the righties lined up on the Dodgers side. When Eovaldi is going to be pitching, they're going to have all the lefties lined up. Why do they do that? Analytics, they've discovered that, at least in LA, lefties hit righties better, or whatever. I mean, the point is that Analytics has made its way into every field known to mankind. I mean, Amazon is doing A/B testing on you every single second. They show you two screens, when you're buying toothpaste, and whichever screen helps you buy more toothpaste becomes the new normal. Imagine why aren't we doing this for teaching? People give the same lectures over and over and over again with yellowed notes, and the reason is you can't use analytics to improve what you do. And so I'll just give you an example of one thing that we do on edX with analytics. Professors can run A/B tests as easily as Amazon can run A/B tests on selling you toothpaste. So a professor with the edX platform can create two ways. Let's say I want to teach about Newton's laws of motion. I don't know, should I use videos or should I use text? Should I use multiple choice or should I use drag and drop? So one physics professor did an A/B test on edX. He used, for the same problem, he used multiple choice and he used a drag and drop type. And so half the edX platform will automatically delineate students into one of A, B, or C, D, E, F, G, tracks, and then give them all the same test and see who does better. And by the way, do you know the answer to that? Which is better for some of these problems, multiple choice or drag and drop? Actually, it turns out drag and drop is better because the spatial way of thinking really enables students to learn the topic better than multiple choice. You can do tests like that when you have hundreds of thousands of students coming, and the platform enables professors to do A/B tests as easily for something as important as education as selling toothpaste on Amazon. So I think analytics are absolutely foundational. I think digital technologies will enable us to use analytics in how we teach, in selectivity, but all kinds of things. It will completely transform education, much like it has transformed baseball.
I'm seeing it really as a foundational tool that enables all of this innovation to happen, because it's actually giving us more predictive views. I mean, we've had data in all of these operational departments on campus. We've had it, we have it, tons of data, but having it brought together where people that can interact with it. And the other thing that's also emerging that I see is this notion of analytics driven based on the student perspective. Usually we think about analytics in the cube that we slice and dice and try to understand something, but the students are striving or trying to understand this really complex thing, and they want to know what's the probability of success of taking Econ 101 at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, and what's the track record of this individual faculty student. My kid's asking me that, and I'm like, that's not here yet. But it's really, really important. I mean, so it's starting to shift, but the good news is we have it. You guys, we have all this data. Yep. It's just surfacing it to the right people at the right time.
Yeah. Well, I think music to many of our ears. So we'd love to turn to the audience and get a few questions. Do we have a microphone out there? Perfect. Please.
Just about the last point, excuse me, about data analytics. The big thing about data analytics is you need a substantial enough data set to get good results, right?
Sure.
Which is great for Amazon, has millions of shoppers, but for a smaller set, like one school, maybe it's going to be difficult to get good results from data. Is that going to suggest or steer people towards more broader, multi-school, global, international programs to be able to get that kind of data?
Yeah, so I already see where you have, a lot of this is happening, you heard partnerships, but I've been working with schools that are what I call geographically bound, state systems that could have disparate technologies at individual campuses, but then taking their currently, a lot of the schools do report public-based information, iPads, these types of things. And so although you might not have actuals from all these other schools to do comparatives of where you're at, you do have your actuals, and you do have the publicly stated actuals from these others, so you can at least start to analyze your programs against their programs and against those. But it's still growing, but then you also have this notion of partnerships that you guys are doing, so you're sharing data too.
Yeah. Well, the partnerships don't always involve as much data sharing as we would like, so I think actually one of the big, to your point, challenges of analytics is enabling those data partnerships. It's actually one of the biggest limiting factors, but I do believe, to the extent that Anant's point is accurate, which I do believe it is, that ultimately universities are going to be measured by the value add generated by the teaching. It's going to drive universities to have to gain more and more data, which will require more and more sharing in order to survive. See, I think it's all market driven that will force the data sharing, that will force the increased use of analytics.
And by the way, if you can justify why you share data, it's actually not hard to get universities to share. On edX, we have 18 million learners, so we do get extraordinary statistical significance when we do A/B testing. It's Amazon scale A/B testing for education. But at the same time, we have not had any trouble convincing universities to share. In fact, edX, we launched something called RDX. It's called Research Data Exchange. We track every single mouse click, and we make the data available to universities. And then based on an opt-in model, all universities can share the data for research, not for marketing, for research. And it wasn't very hard to convince them to do that.
And I think that's a key switch, though. It's for research,
Yes.
not for marketing.
It's
right?
called research.
Right.
For the
It's called
marketing.
Research Data Exchange, RDX.
Yes.
That's great.
I think there was another question. I just want to try to make sure we get time for a few.
Hi. Question about what you've learned since the creation of edX and the growth of what you're doing, and then maybe talk a little bit about completion.
So we've learned just so extraordinarily much. Just as one example, talking about analytics, Philip Goel, who's a professor at UCSD, tried to answer a simple age-old question: how long should videos be? Our lectures are an hour long, and I've even taught 90-minute classes. So he did a huge study using 5 million videos on edX, and he demonstrated 6-minute videos are best. So that's just one example of something we've learned. Create 6-minute videos. Students will learn better than creating 60-minute videos. Just an incredible amount that we've learned in how to teach, in how better to. The other example, I give you simple examples like drag and drop being better than multiple choice for many types of questions. These are small examples. But at a higher level, we've learned that the policy centers, the accreditors, are completely happy with innovation. We keep blaming them that there's no innovation in colleges. They completely supported us when we launched new credentials like MicroMasters.
But you're not a university. They haven't accredited you to confer degrees.
But our university partners are changing. They are offering these micro-credentials. ASU and Thunderbird offers one in international management. We have 50 MicroMasters from 30 universities, and universities are changing. And previously they said, the accreditors are bad. DOE won't let us do it. DOE would say, the faculty are not doing it. I mean, really, it just takes some innovators. And so we are a lightning rod trying to create innovation. And it's not been hard. It's been slow, but it's not been impossible to get movement. So a lot of this change is happening. On completions, for people that sign up for a verified certificate for MicroMasters, our completion rates are 80%. But across the board, completion rates, for example, with ASU for Global Freshman Academy, our first-year program, it's around 50%, 60%. So pass rates range from 50 to 80% for people that sign up on the verified track.
And there is a panel later this afternoon that's going to try to address the completion and the career and then the education to employment side, which is why we haven't focused on that side of the equation quite as much this morning. Any other burning questions in the audience? Let me just get this gentleman here.
Yeah, I'll just speak loud.
Please.
I'm curious, I believe it's with Modern States. Do you work with high school students who want to pursue their first year of college in a dual credit type of opportunity?
Absolutely. We work with high schools and with high school students. The program is completely open to high school students. So you could be a junior in high school or a senior in high school, and you want to get ahead, you have the ability to get ahead, or the subject matter expertise doesn't exist at your school to teach an AP course or to teach a course that prepares you perhaps for a CLEP, college level examination program exam offered by the College Board. So I would say something like 40% of our students out of the 100,000 are high school students. And it's tremendously popular with teachers in high schools too, where they use a flipped classroom model of using the videos that have been created, great courses, and then they have discussions the next day, for example, after assigning that as homework. So we've had a lot of high school students and a great deal of interest, not only in the dual credit programs that are out there, but in a program like this that can vault students forward and offer subjects, particularly, let's say, in rural areas and others where they don't have the subject matter experts. We can bring it right to them through the magic of the internet.
Great. So unfortunately, the clicker here, the time clock is ticking down. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure that we keep the Road 66 rolling here. So what I thought we'd do is we can just turn back the panel and let's go back to the opening question, which is the new global university is disruptive, innovative, and what would you fill in if you had to pick sort of one clause or idea that we haven't discussed already that would complete the ellipsis there? What would you insert?
More similar to universities that exists today than anyone else up here is saying. We're creating an on-ramp to college. There's no question they're talking about the future and pontificating, but if we look at the world, they've been saying these things for years, and all the colleges and universities haven't gone away. They're not going away anytime soon, not in the foreseeable future. That's why, for example, at Modern States, we're not trying to replace colleges and universities. If somebody can go spend 4 years at MIT on campus, that's a better experience than the online experience. But not everybody can do that, and the courses are available for people whether they can make it to a campus or not, but it's an on-ramp to traditional college. We're not trying to replace the traditional college. We're trying to create an on-ramp that reduces tuition by up to 25%.
James.
I would say I'm encouraged by the conversation, and there are many places that things are happening that are generating these pathways for students. It is happening. And it's nice to see and hear just with this group I've been lucky to work with for the last couple of weeks, but the momentum of partnerships and collaborations is going to drive the change. And I think the momentum was here, so I do agree. It is happening. It's just I think the students, the other piece of this, will have the voice. I can tell you my son is taking the night class at a community college as he's a senior in high school, a night class, because that's the only way he could take something.
And at community colleges, they're not going away. They're taking on an important new role.
They're actually going to be a very, very key part to a guided pathway moving forward for a lot of students. So I'm encouraged would be the last piece I'd add to it.
Great. Julia.
So obviously technology enabled, but in thinking about what we haven't touched on so much is sitting here in the capital of Latin America, is we saw the global universities. So we've seen universities get increasingly global on multiple levels, and I think the technology and just the interconnectedness of the world will make universities far more global than we've even imagined so far.
Thank you. Anand?
I would say universities and colleges, of course, they're not going away. And I think the right word might be omni-channel. Just like retail has gone omni-channel, don't forget that Amazon acquired Whole Foods a year ago. And so there will be, if you ever try to buy a mango, you got to smell it. You don't buy a mango unless you smell a mango. And so how do you do that online? And similarly with
you may be able to in the near future. Who knows?
If you can transmit smell using bits, go for it. But I think that fundamentally, education will go omni-channel, even if you are at a university. At MIT, for example, they now allow students to take a 100% online class on edX. And students are reporting one entire standard deviation lower stress with the online class than with the campus class. So I think we will see a lot more commingling, even for campus students, or for students who are outside. They might come to get an education on campus for 1 year. Why 4 years? Why not 1 year? And commingle online and in person.
Yeah, and I would finish by just saying I think the university of the future is really going to be focused on what is value add, right? Where does the perceived value come from? I think it was traditionally in the hands of the university administration and faculty to define that. And I think it's much more being driven by the consumer marketplace, but the universities are not going away. They're just going to have to adapt to this. And our definitions, our rankings, our changing completion, all these other ideas that were not in vogue even 10 years ago are really coming to the fore because that's what the economic realities of the consumers are looking for. So I'm looking forward to a much more responsive, value-added university of the future. Thank you all very much to the panelists. Thank you to the audience.
Thank you.